Welcome to episode 7 of 22 Man Game with Jared and Damon. I'm Jared. That's Damon. We're coming to you live, pre-recorded, at 7:48 p.m. Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. Still basking in the afterglow of week 1. Damon, how are you on this fine Tuesday Eve?
Oh, yeah, it happened, and I'm ready to overreact and go way too dramatic about all of the things we saw and how I expect it will shape the entire NFL season. How are you, Jared?
By that same token, I feel dehydrated from all the tears I've shed since Sunday, from a fandom perspective, but ready to turn that new leaf, talk about the week at large. Thought it was a fun slate of games, albeit a little low scoring. But first, there is plenty of news, both from before the games got going and then after the games themselves. So let's dive right into that. And let's start with a tragic retirement for people rooting to have a fantasy sleeper on their team this year.
Me? Is it me?
Yes, you took this harder than anyone. So
Amari Cooper retiring before week one, signed with the Raiders this offseason, pretty late in the offseason, and then retired. I don't know if this was supposed to be like one of those, that's the team I started my career with, that's where I want to retire things. Or if he went to the Raiders, maybe he was having a lackluster camp, and they were like, "You're going to be wide receiver four," and he was like, "I'm going to retire." Or if he didn't
yeah,
like what was going on over at the Raiders team and was like, okay, never mind, actually, I'm done. One of those three is probably true, and I don't know which one it is, but I have a soft spot for Amari Cooper. Some people don't know this, but Dom, friend of the pod, his favorite team is the Raiders. I don't really know why. Um, and back in college, when Amari Cooper was drafted, he was drafted by the Raiders. I got Dom one of those jersey shirts with 89 and Cooper on it that I gave to him. So, a soft spot there. Now he's gone, making me feel really old.
89 is a bit of an odd receiver number. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but yeah, definitely one of those players who I feel like I remember coming into the league and now leaving. He was with the team per Yahoo Sports for a week and a half, which is definitely too long to be a retire with the team contract.
Yeah.
And too short to even know how well he was doing in camp, right? I think we get one or two of these a year where a player signs who's a lot older and then gets to training camp and is like, I think I'm okay. So it just,
So you
maybe it
think it's the
seems like,
third option
yeah,
where he was just like, okay, actually, never mind.
I think I'm just good with football at large. Yeah, I mean, an older player at this point,
Only
pretty steep
31.
drop off. 30, well, yeah, I guess 31 isn't that old. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe he just wasn't that high on the depth chart and knew maybe his time was coming to an end. And so they said, hey, we're either going to cut you and stash you on the practice squad, or you can retire kind of with dignity with the team or something like that. Um, but yeah, I had a really solid career. I think at one time was considered a top 15 receiver. I would say as a lot of younger guys came in, he was kind of taken out of that conversation, especially as he withered away on the Browns. But I remember putting him on my team last year after he was traded to the Bills and hoping he would be a fantasy supernova for me. He was definitely not. Up
Fantasy dwarf
next,
star.
say that again. Fantasy dwarf star.
Yeah.
That's really good. I kind of like that actually. I feel like that would be a good branding move for us. We should do an astronomy themed fantasy football
There we
segment every
go.
week. Yeah. The fantasy Ort cloud of the week.
Oh,
So good. Um, Cam Heyward revised his deal with the Steelers. Let's move on to some contracts. He added $3 million worth of incentives. He was insinuating, I believe, that he was going to be unwilling to play potentially. So, um,
not suiting up at practice during this little holdout, I guess.
yeah, definitely something I think we've seen. I feel like a little bit more this year. Something kind of similar happened with Alex Anzalone, linebacker for the Lions this year. players wanting to make more money, Trey Hendrickson being another example. And so instead of getting an extension, the team negotiates to essentially give them a 1-year raise or opportunity for a raise without necessarily changing the timeline of their contracts. But definitely a key player for them in a season where they've gone all in on the Aaron Rodgers experience.
I'll have you know he's a 99 in Madden, which is kind of crazy to me.
Cam Heyward is in 99 in Madden. Madden,
Yeah.
there's no way. Right, like in 2025.
Yeah. At least when
That's
I watch a YouTuber Madden video and I see him, he's 99 when they start. So
wow. That is not what I expected to. I'm sorry, I have to look this up.
that's fair. While you look it up, I'll move on to
His
a
current rating
separate
is 94, which is still
94.
really high, but
Maybe, okay. I
99.
will say in Madden, they do have like morale boost and stuff. So maybe it was like
Oh,
some sort of
yeah.
morale boost that had put him up there.
Yeah. His throw
94 is
accuracy
still
mid is
very
only
high.
6. Crazy.
Okay. Wow.
Wow. Yeah, 94 is really high for a player of his age. I mean, maybe that's name recognition, but I
Was he
feel
like
like
36?
he's actually 94 also. It's both his
Oh,
age
okay.
and
That's
his
crazy.
rating. Yeah, a lot of longevity. Definitely not a Hall of Fame lock, but no, 30. He is 36. Wow,
Longer.
that's yeah, that was impressive. Not casual. I'll say that much. What
Other
else?
D-line news,
Other D line
right?
news. Yeah, give it to us.
Za'Darius Smith of Lions fame, not really, signed with, I mean, he wasn't the Lions, but I don't know about Lions fame. That's a strong term. Signed with the Eagles on a 1-year deal.
Yeah, getting up to 9 million from the Eagles. Lions fans were desperate to sign Za'Darius Smith, and it's possible after this weekend's results that some fans are feeling that even more strongly. Definitely was solid for us, and has definitely the juice to give the Eagles something as a rotational pass rusher, probably at this point in his career.
Yeah, they were getting the Javonte Williams experience all Cowboys Eagles Thursday nights. Maybe that's what
Yeah,
helped.
if Javonte Williams is carving you up, I have news about 29 other running back rooms in the league that you don't want to hear. And there's news about the Eagles running back room as well. But we'll get to that later. First, the Packers extended wide receiver Christian Watson on a 1-year, $13.25 million deal. That number and that length, just 1 year, kind of feels like a prove it deal to me. Christian Watson, a guy who's been banged up a lot. Do
Currently
you think this?
recovering from a torn ACL.
Yeah. So this is probably their way of saying, hey, we like what you give us when you're on the field, but you're not always on the field. And I wouldn't say Christian Watson's proved to be a true number one receiver by any means in his time on the Packers. So could be
Neither
worth
did
much more.
Matthew Golden in the first week, but we'll see.
Yeah. The Packers weren't strictly perfect this week, despite what every pundit will tell you. Fun fact, I actually heard that every religion has changed its subject of worship to Micah Parsons. Pretty crazy.
Oh, that's wild. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not bitter about anything. Niners making some wide receiver moves as well, signing Kendrick Bourne on a 1-year deal that goes up to $5 million, and then Jauan Jennings revised his deal with the Niners to add $3 million worth of incentives. Another example of teams giving that slight raise instead of the coveted extension to a player on their team.
Ending that contractitis, perhaps, that he was suffering. So
Yeah.
we'll see him out there more. Maybe. He
Then
has an
again, you
injury we'll
sign
talk
Kendrick
about.
Bourne, probably not if Jauan Jennings has contractitis, right? So maybe that's keeping it
Well,
out.
the rest of their receiving room is basically non-existent, so they just need guys. They just need people out there.
Yeah. And as we'll get to, with George Kittle as well, they need whatever receiving
Mhm.
help they can get. What else have the Niners been up to this week?
They extended starting tackle Colton McKivitz on a 3-year, $45 million deal, $27 million of which is guaranteed.
Yes,
That
they
was my
did.
pronunciation there.
Colton McKivitz
Yeah, you're like,
sounds
I don't
right.
know.
I,
Yeah,
I can't think of
okay, great.
another way to say it, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
fair. Tell me about more extensions,
I
please.
will. I'll start with another tackle extension here. The Buccaneers extending tackle Luke Goedecke, a 4-year, $90 million deal with $50 million guaranteed. Um, a lot of pundits talk about offensive line being a strength of this team. I think that makes sense. Tristan Wirfs being another strong bookend on this team. And so you fortify both tackle spots for the foreseeable future. And that makes you confident that maybe they can keep the good times rolling with Baker Mayfield. The Titans extended safety Amani Hooker on a 3-year, $48.6 million deal, $29 million of that guaranteed. When we were trying to name Titans defensive players a few weeks back, this is maybe one that slipped our radar. Definitely a name
Good
I've heard of and
player.
a pretty, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And a
he
good
can ball.
defense in week one. They had a good showing.
Um, Amani Hooker, Defensive Player of the Year. We're going to try to
No.
overreact as much as possible to week one. So, doing my best to really start that early. One more. I guess there's actually three more quick extensions on here. I'm just going to run through them super fast, and then we can talk about them all. Bucks
All right.
extended corner Zyon McCollum, 3-year, $48 million deal, $35.4 million guaranteed. That's quality starter money. Maybe not top five, but top 20 corner money for sure. The Buccaneers extend. Wow, that's not right. The Broncos extended linebacker Nik Bonitto on a 4-year, $106 million deal with $70 million guaranteed. That is high spending on a linebacker, no doubt. And then the Lions extended Jameson Williams on the eve of their opening game Saturday night on a 3-year deal worth up to $83 million. So close to that $30 million a year number for Jameson Williams.
Which one of these strikes your fancy the most?
Anytime I see a linebacker making over 25 million a year, that catches my eye. And I think he's been a signature piece of that defense. They've made some investments in guys like Dre Greenlaw from the Niners this offseason. So I think the Broncos scheme really values linebacker play. And so if you're willing to commit that much to your linebackers, that just goes to show that Nik Bonitto's really a feature and a centerpiece. Even if Pat Surtain won DPOY last year, Bonitto is definitely someone to keep an eye on as a core performer for the
I
Broncos
believe
team.
this is the highest non-QB contract in Broncos history.
Really?
Hmm.
Is he? Did they extend Pat Surtain, or has that not happened yet?
That's a great question.
Because I would imagine that Pat. Wow, yeah, you're right. Pat Surtain, 4 years, 96 million. So that beats him by a whole 10 million. That's a strong vote of confidence for a position that is traditionally not your highest paid non-quarterback position really on any team. That's really
Yeah,
unique,
I mean you
interesting.
have the TJ Watts, the Micah Parsons of the world. And I don't think anyone would argue that Nik Bonitto is quite to that level.
Yeah, for sure. And I think they also very much have that hybrid D end linebacker label, which I don't know Nik Bonitto's game well enough to comment on, but um, I think Nik is a guy I'll keep my eye on whenever we hit the Broncos on our wheel, whenever they're our wheel
Mm,
team.
hmm.
A couple more bits and bobs. Quinshon Judkins, the second round pick for the Cleveland Browns, was cleared of criminal charges in the domestic abuse charges in Florida. Signed a 4-year, $11.4 million contract with the Cleveland Browns, becoming the last selection from the 2025 NFL draft to sign a contract. The NFL has not declared whether they will issue any punishment to him from the league itself. If not, the law has exonerated him, but the league can still independently opt to suspend him if they so choose.
Clear of criminal charges does not mean the crime didn't happen, but we will never know.
That is also a great point. And I think that it is a unspoken rule in the NFL that if you're clear to the criminal charges, oftentimes that opens the door for you, regardless of how seemingly self-evident your guilt is, right? Um, I'm not assuming that Quinshon Judkins, did this or didn't do this, obviously, necessarily, but clear to criminal charges in the NFL could mean a lot of things. And then we had a bizarre trade, at the very least, a bit unexpected. What was this swap that caught us off guard here?
Yeah, so the Jags ended up trading Tank Bigsby after he played on Sunday, I believe something like 5 carries, 12 yards. Very little usage in the Jags backfield, over to the Eagles for a fifth and sixth round pick in our upcoming draft here in 2026. I would imagine part of the reason this happened is because Will Shipley, Saquon's primary backup, did get injured during their game against the Cowboys, and they want to make sure they have another guy. Worth mentioning, AJ Dillon is an Eagle. He signed there this offseason, and they did not really utilize him and kind of traded for a player that fits his mold as a power back. So, should Saquon have to miss anything, or even just when he needs a breather, which, as you might need in a professional football game, it'll be interesting to see who's getting those reps in the backfield. And on the other end, I think this means Travis Etienne season is back after a season last year in which seemed kind of a split backfield. His usage kind of varied here and there. They did draft two rookies this offseason in the fourth and seventh round. Bashal Tootin, and then the last guy's name, the other guy's look, it's like LaQuint Allen, I believe, seventh round pick out of Syracuse. Both played a little bit on Sunday, but Travis Etienne was the primary ball handler, had a big day. So interesting capital to give up for what is ultimately a backup for your team. Maybe they just really like the player. I don't know. What do you think about it?
Yeah, fifth and a sixth is a pretty sizable investment. I wasn't aware of the Shipley injury, so that's a good insight to bring in there. It makes a lot of sense to me why the Jags would want to move on from Bigsby if you've invested in backups and you've sort of reclaimed ETN, who I think kind of fell off the radar as a running back under the previous coaching regime. And so I could see maybe this price is a result of the Jags shipping around Bigsby, and maybe there were a few bidders pushing the price up. And I suppose if you're the Eagles and you feel as confident in your roster as you probably should, considering you are coming off a Super Bowl victory, maybe you look at those fifth and sixth round picks and say it's worth to give those up to guarantee you're getting consistent running back play in an offense that relies on that. And with the fact that Saquon is just traditionally so aggressively utilized. So yeah, I'm thinking they maybe just had the capital and said, hey, why not? But both of those picks was surprising, especially coming off of the Brian Robinson trade being just a sixth rounder. And the fact that Tank Bigsby clearly had fallen out of favor in Jacksonville. That's interesting.
Yeah, it does seem like a bit of an overpay. I do think I was reading the Eagles have they have like they had like four fifth or sixth round picks, one of those rounds in the
Hmm.
upcoming draft. So getting rid of one of them was not a huge deal for them.
Yeah, when you're a good team, you don't have a ton of room on your roster for developmental guys, and so makes sense. Pick up a guy you feel is sure will contribute meaningful snaps, and then if you're Jacksonville, free up room for those rooks to get more touches. I'm sure. And that's it for the big news, I think. We've got a few more bits and bobs kind of folded into our recap of week one, which had some super electric matchups, some snoozers, a lot of low scoring, and overall tons of narratives to extrapolate and exaggerate, which is our plan here today. Damon, would you like to start by recapping your wheel team game of the week? Raiders Patriots, or should I start with the divisional matchup with our beloved squad?
I will start because I'm excited about what I had to see. So Raiders, Patriots. The Raiders do win 20-13 in Foxborough, Massachusetts. I was like, what state is it in? Massachusetts. I and during our first episode, I had my five worst take. We both had five worst takes, five best takes of the offseason. I believe one of my bad takes was that I didn't get the Geno Smith thing for the
Mm-hmm.
Raiders. It was a huge number. It was an old quarterback, but man, he looked like a professional out there. He really did. He was operating that Raiders offense pretty swimmingly, especially because something I noticed Ashton Jinty and the ground game, the offensive line, didn't get a ton going against the Patriots defense. So it was a lot of Geno Smith through the air, and he was spreading the ball out really between three primary people. It was Jacoby Myers, clearly the wide receiver one, Brock Bowers, of course, we all know one of the better tight ends in the league already at his young age. And then even Michael Mayer was getting in on the action on the offensive end too. There's a couple of like random throws to some of the other backup receivers, but those are the three guys that seem to be targeted the most. Genty got a couple targets out of the backfield, but yeah, he looked pretty poised. He did have to scramble around quite a bit when the offensive line didn't hold up, and he would have to try to make something out of nothing. And maybe I was wrong to doubt the Geno Smith signing because maybe having a veteran presence that knows how to handle a game will in fact develop your young players because they're seeing what like operational football looks like instead of random young QB that doesn't really know what they're doing. Because the Raiders didn't have a J.J. McCarthy, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, like a young star quarterback. They just had a young quarterback, not necessarily the star part. So it makes more sense to me now after watching it. And under Pete Carroll, by the way, oldest NFL coach in history now, officially after Sunday's game. Almost, I think he turned 74 this week. So he is going to be um, blah, blah, blah. What was I saying? He is a defensive-minded coach. That's what I was saying. And their defense looked pretty good under his operation. I was surprised. The Raiders, for as long as I can remember, really, in my adulthood, have kind of just been a defense that gets bowled over by other teams. And they looked pretty good in this game. Granted, it was the Patriots offense. Drake May, second-year quarterback, didn't look amazing. Stephon Diggs was pretty limited in his first game as a Patriots receiver. He had like a snap count, I believe. Um, but they did look like they were kind of having defensive stops that gave their offense momentum. And I hope to see that as the year goes on because I feel like the Raiders they've had Max Crosby, but they haven't had like a defensive identity, I think, in a long, long time. So that would be cool to see. Last thing, Brock Bowers left the game towards the end with a knee injury, got hit, hobbled off to the sideline. And it was pretty late in the game, so he didn't come back. But when he talked to the media, he said, I'm fine. So I guess he's fine.
Well, thank goodness for my fantasy team. Otherwise, that second round pick would be up in smoke. Not what we want to see. Yeah, I think that's some great insight and analysis there. I think the hope, right, of speculation with Gino was raising the floor of the team and making them um, less embarrassing or less non-functional at moments. So my question for you coming out of this game, did you see anything that makes you think the Raiders could, if they improve over the course of the season, challenge for a playoff spot? Or was this more a competent team that probably doesn't have the pieces to start contending yet, just based on what you saw, keeping in mind it's week one, which determines everything
Sure.
for the coming season? Yeah.
Yeah, I think based on what I saw, I mean, if they continue to play like this, I don't think they could be a playoff team despite how positive it was. I think they would be better than the bad teams, like the really bad teams. But they're in just a loaded division. The Chiefs, the Broncos, the Chargers, they're still probably the worst of the four teams in their own division. And obviously, that's going to be really tough as you're trying to make a playoff run. But I do think, they beat the Patriots here, for example, when they play teams like the Jaguars, the Panthers, the Saints, and even some other teams that I would consider middling, like the Falcons or teams like that. I think they have a real shot. So they feel like not quite number one draft pick bad, but not quite playoff good. Somewhere in the middle.
I think a lot of Raiders fans would probably be happy with that. Lose the games you're supposed to lose, win the games you're supposed to win is kind of step one for turning that franchise around. So hopefully their positive momentum continues, and they can start to instill more of that winning culture going forward. And yeah, any thoughts on the Patriots just because you watched the game, or was your focus on the Raiders mostly?
Yeah, I mean, I was focused on the Raiders. I noticed the Patriots running back usage was kind of interesting. They kind of switched between Travion Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson a lot. Henderson ended up getting more touches for sure and looked more explosive. Ramondre kind of looks stout. Drake May, I think, is already getting a little more usage with his legs than he was allotted a lot of last year. He never really had designed rushes or anything like that. It feels like that was more built into the offensive plan here. Um, I don't remember his first name, but his last name is Booty, Keyshawn, I think. Um, Something like that.
I know. Is it Bout? Yeah, I can't remember his first name
Yeah,
either, but I know who you're talking about.
yeah, he was targeted like 8 times or something. And I was shocked. I was like, "Is this the wide receiver one in this offense?" Because it just seemed very shocking to me.
Yeah,
So
Keyshawn,
that was nice
nice.
to see. Boom.
Ball, truly a ball knower. Um,
Yeah, not enough Pop Douglas love, but oh well. Um,
yeah, just
what
waiting for
else
him to
did I
pop off.
notice? There you go. Their defense, not as good as I thought it was going to be. I think that's just because a lot of the pieces are new or really young. And I think that on paper, when you read the names, you're like, "Yep, this could be a pretty good unit." I just think they probably need some more time to gel into like a cohesive unit.
Um, yeah, that all makes sense. I mean, it's two teams with new coaches, right? Seems like the Patriots skewing a little younger at positions like quarterback, obviously, probably have a few more growing pains under new leadership there, but a close game. So hopefully both these teams, continue to stay solid, and the defense can maybe congeal for the Patriots, and my playoff pick for them will look reasonable. Um, awesome. I should probably talk about the game I watched, and it was brutal. Lions lost to the Packers in Lambeau 27-13. There was a garbage time touchdown in there, so 27-6 might be a more fair score. A lot of people coming out of this game. I've been doom scrolling on Lions, websites and such things. A lot of pessimism, a lot of this team is washed, a lot of this reminds me of 2022, 2021. My phone going off a lot, even if you can hear that in the back. Um, Ringers off. But I think it's important to first off what went wrong. Okay, so the Lions, known as a running team, high powered offense, could not get much going on the ground or in the air. The interior offensive line just looked overmatched. They had Micah Parsons line up over the center at least once or twice, and with just some exotic kind of passing off looks that required the interior offensive lineman to really know who they were covering and be prepared to kind of step in front of the right defensive lineman. That just wasn't happening often enough. And that put a lot of pressure on Goff. It was check down after check down. I read one comment on the Pride of Detroit site talking about how you could just kind of call out what play was coming next as you were watching. And it did kind of feel like that as a fan. With the new offensive coordinator, that's not ideal. The new defensive coordinator, same site, same comment thread that I was weeping to earlier today. Judging defensive coordinator Kelvin Shepard for putting guys like Aiden Hutchinson in coverage on third down, which is certainly a bit of an odd use of your defensive end talent, a position that Lions fans often want to see receive more depth. Looking at you, Zadarius Smith. And that said, we gave up a couple huge explosive plays. Terrion Arnold did not look great, giving up kind of two back-to-back big plays, but also left the game with a groin injury he said started affecting him on the second drive. He took accountability for it, but nonetheless, something to monitor. And overall, here's my feeling on this game for the Lions. Everyone's saying the Packers looked like a dominant unit. I don't think that that's necessarily my takeaway. I feel like this was as much about the Lions being bad as the Packers being very good, which they were. Their passing offense was dynamic, but until the second half, they really couldn't get much going in the run game to speak of whatsoever. Josh Jacobs was effectively stuffed from the jump. In the second half, the defense tightened up, and yes, we were leaky in the fourth quarter, but I felt like our third quarter defense was strong, and I saw improvements as the game went on. And again, removing at least one dimension from their attack, I think, is a great thing. On offense, we actually had a really strong time of possession, and we're holding the ball pretty consistently. We were just kind of fumbling it away in the red zone, settling for field goals, and then throwing an interception in the red zone late. in the first half, which kind of killed an opportunity to put ourselves in strong position coming out of half. And those are the kind of mistakes you can't afford. Dan Campbell's messaging around this game, talking about how it wasn't as bad as it looked from his point of view, and that there were few key plays that went the wrong way. I happen to agree a little bit more with that assessment than the Lions were shellacked, Lions are washed, Lions Super Bowl window slammed shut narrative. I think that's all a little silly. Definitely a tough game to watch. If we lose to the Bears week 2, I'm going to be really concerned because we just don't lose games back to back. And the Bears did not put up a performance that chills the bones. And we are hosting them in Detroit. So definitely shook my faith a little bit. But grit is not about succeeding without turmoil. It's about succeeding in spite of turmoil. Here's the turmoil. Check back in with me in week 5. If we're looking competitive against Baltimore and Kansas City and teams of that ilk by then, I'm going to feel much better about the squad. And I believe that once the communication issues get cleaned up and the coordinators settle in, we're going to be closer to the Lions that we've gotten used to in the last few years. Talent just doesn't disappear. Rant over. End of rant.
All very fair. Yeah, I think with the new coordinators, new start of the season, first regular season game, a lot of pieces shifting around. A talented Packers team in a relatively difficult place to play, I think. It makes sense, I think, yeah, not too overreact. It's not like, oh, like you said, the window is shut, but rather kind of a lot of things going against the Lions' favor before the game even started.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if they walked away from this and won, people wouldn't talk about that, but they did, so we must.
Yeah, I
That's
think
the
there's
in-depth analysis you'll get every week from us on our games that we get on the wheel.
the darn right. I think there's a real in the NFL. I feel like there's teams that have an innocent until proven guilty sort of vibe around them, where people will just inherently trust them and need to see them lose multiple times in a row before they actually start to get concerned. And some teams are guilty until proven innocent. With all the Ben Johnson hype, the Lions are currently guilty until proven innocent, and until their coordinators show up, and we look like a dynamic offense again, not relying so much on checkdowns. We're going to look like we have things to work on, but all the more exciting for week 2. And the Packers, if you're a Packers fan, I understand feeling really good about this game. Don't want to take away from y'all's win. Jordan Love looked precise, pretty dynamic. Couple errant throws. Lions turnover negated by penalty and another dropped interception by Alex Anzalone. But on balance, the defense took away our deep passing game almost entirely, and a lot to be excited for, especially as Micah gets a full snap count. I don't think he played more than 12 to 20 snaps week 1. So moving on from that, I'll cry into my pillow about it later tonight, but there were a ton of big, exciting games that set up some huge storylines. Damon, do you want to take our first non-wheel matchup of the week? What jumped out to you as a game worth discussing?
I will. Yeah, I ended up writing these down in just reverse order of when they happened. For
Oh,
some
sweet.
reason, that's just what occurred. So let's start with the most recent one, Monday Night Football. Vikings at Bears in Soldier Field was surprisingly a good game. Overreactions? Is Justin Jefferson dead in fantasy football? He was until the fourth quarter. And then he caught a touchdown pass, so that was nice. But yeah, it was kind of a tale of not two halves, more like two quarters and then a quarter where nothing happened, and then the fourth quarter is what it felt like. So the Bears started off really hot in this game. Caleb Williams looked pretty good. Rome Odunze was like clearly the guy for him to go to. Surprising, you'd think it would be DJ Moore. DJ Moore got like 3 carries out of the backfield. That was also surprising to me.
Huh.
Yeah, kind of like a Debo-esque role from a couple years ago for the 49ers. It was strange. Aside from that, it was really just the DeAndre Swift show. Not a lot of depth behind him there. Before the game, though, I should mention Bears corner, all pro corner. Jalen Johnson was inactive. He had some calf and groin issues he was dealing with. So I was primed for this Justin Jefferson takeover for fantasy, and I didn't get it, and I lost in our fantasy league to Sophia. So shout out to you, Sophia. I know you'll never hear this, but you beat me in fantasy football in week 1.
Did you go one
Thanks.
and one or 0-2? Because
I
we
went 0
have
and
the
2.
0
Yeah,
and
I went
2.
0 and 2.
I was thinking about this
I was
today
right
as
on
I
the
was
edge.
I actually think you're in a good spot. I was listening to some podcast and they were talking about, maybe you were talking about this too. After week 1 is a crucial waiver week. And so if you have to lose in fantasy, lose week 1, claim the surprise guys, and then use them to fuel the rest of your season. Seeing as I went 2-0, I'm skeptical that my waiver claims will go through. I've got 3 in right now. We'll see if,
I
or
haven't
yeah, 3.
even looked really.
I haven't even looked. Oh my goodness.
It's been a long day.
Well, if you want to go to sleep forgetting about it and then not interfere with any of my
Sure,
claims, I have
sure, sure,
3
sure.
claims all on one player. So, like, sorry, Ollie Gordon, but you are likely to be replaced by one of these 3 people in order. And then, anyway, I
Fair.
didn't catch this game. I did catch all of the. If you go on like Safari or whatever, and it pulls up Google, and then it will have like a scroll of tweets that will update as you update your web page, and it was just JJ McCarthy washed, and then I updated in the fourth quarter, and they're like, JJ McCarthy is the next Tom Brady. Everyone's saying JJ McCarthy is bad, is totally like first takes exposed, like all this embarrassing or bad takes exposed, whatever.
Yeah, you didn't
Uh,
let me finish my thoughts on the game. I wasn't even done yet.
I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. I'm ashamed.
We just went on a fantasy tangent. That's all that happened.
I thought morning
Um,
JJ McCarthy was the or morning whatever. Go ahead. I don't listen to him.
Fair. Vikings were missing their starting left tackle, Christian Darrisaw. Very important play for them. And Harrison Smith, a little older now, but good safety on that defense. He just had an illness and wasn't active either. So, that being said, Bears looked really good to start off, as I mentioned. And even on defense, they looked pretty good because JJ McCarthy looked very panicked. He looked like it was his first NFL
Mm.
game. He was just very hesitant to do things. Throwing a lot of short intermediate passes, not really using his scrambling ability, which he did show later in the game. Just kind of, yeah, just panicking, I think is a good word for it. And then in the fourth quarter, it really turned around. They scored 3 touchdowns in a row. Um, 3 possessions, 3 touchdowns to come back and win this game ultimately. One of them was kind of a very college player read option, which he faked a
Mm.
handoff to. It was either Aaron Jones or Jordan Mason. I don't remember who was in. And then one of the defenders bit, one of them didn't, but he was fast enough to get to the edge, and his tight end had a great block, didn't let his defender get off of him at all, and scored a touchdown that ultimately put them ahead. So that was awesome. And then Bears did score with enough time on the clock for J.J. McCarthy to make an excellent pass down the field and their kicker to hit a game-winning field goal. So it was an awesome end of the game. A lot of the game was kind of boring because the Bears were killing them, and then all of a sudden the Vikings were like, "Actually, we're going to win real quick." Um, and the Bears kicker missed. Cairo Santos missed a 48 yard or two that would have led to the game being tied also. So tough loss for the Bears, but I think both the young quarterbacks looked pretty good. I think both offenses looked like they had a lot of potential, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Well, I'm hoping we're pumping the brakes on the Bears after week 2, but I suppose we'll see. It feels like the week of missed kicks potentially. We'll get to some of the those games
Hmm.
later. Missed kicks and then made kicks. Looking at a certain contest on here. Yeah, it sounds like a really fun game. And of course, JJ McCarthy is good because why not catch a break, right? Uh, um, yeah, I said my piece too early. I said it before you were done, so I don't have much more to say about this game.
Fair.
Why don't we jump ahead? I'm gonna save the next game on the list for a little bit later. I want to talk about a game that people thought would be a fun story game, but not necessarily a fun game, and then it turned out to be an absolute barn burner. This was Steelers Jets. Steelers going up to MetLife Stadium, and it was expected. Oh, Rodgers going back to the Jets. It'll be fun. Maybe the Jets will look feisty. But both these teams, whatever. Turned out to be a 34-32 Uh, Barn burner, second highest scoring game of the week. Both offenses trading blows all through the game. Justin Fields looking dynamic, making our takes on Justin Fields look good. Rodgers hanging tough, staying competitive. And it came down to a late fourth down throw from Fields that was punched out of Garrett Wilson's hands to end the game, but a surprisingly high offensive output from two teams that are probably more known for either bad offense, good defense, or both, right? Steelers, obviously, with Cam Heyward, Madden 94 rating up the middle of the defensive line. TJ Watt being well known, the Jalen Ramsey acquisition.
Yeah, I was going to
Um,
say, you know who made the big play in this game was Jalen
yeah,
Ramsey.
Jalen Ramsey in
Ah.
what was clearly the best move of the offseason and well evaluated as such, trucking Wilson to force that ball loose. And have it hit the deck and kind of end the contest there. But yeah, for a team known for its defense, and obviously Aaron Glenn, former defensive coordinator of the Lions, defensive first head coach. But his team put up 32. And if I'm a Jets fan, man, that was fun. That was exciting. Fields looked like he had real juice. Again, it's just week one, right? And it could be a situation where neither defense was schematically prepared for what the offenses were going to throw down. This could be a case where, maybe the defenses are just leakier than we expected, but this game was a lot of fun to watch back and forth. I had the four panels open, and this panel was the one that I had the audio for because this was the one that I cared about going on. But
For sure.
definitely an exciting match. Any thoughts on the Fields assance?
Yeah, I mean, we both really liked the Justin Fields signing, and it's looking good in week one. Offense was looking a lot more functional than I think people would have given it credit for. Did mention Brees Hall had a pretty good game. I think
Oh
people are
yeah.
also wondering about how he was going to look with the hype of Braylon Allen in the backfield, but ultimately, I think he looked pretty good. Yeah, two what's supposed to be really good defenses getting scored on a lot is really funny. Um, and Aaron Rodgers, my take of I really don't like the Aaron Rodgers pick. Man, he made a couple throws that I was like, oh God, that guy did win two MVPs, huh? Yeah, I do remember that. Because yeah, he looked good, much to my chagrin.
Here's my bold take or my I guess my overreaction. This game says much more about the quality of the Jets than the quality of the Steelers.
Mm,
I think that the
I
Jets
hope you're
being
right.
really I hope I'm right too, and maybe I'm just wish casting, but um, if the Jets are surprisingly good, maybe that puts the Steelers win in higher esteem, but um the Steelers came in with an all-in mentality. And so yeah, beating the Jets with that mindset when they have a first-year coach, some good talent, but by no means the deepest team in the NFL, you should be able to do that if you think you're a Super Bowl contender. I think, and Week One's weird, but I believe this says more good about the Jets than the Steelers. And maybe the Jets will end up being the AFC East sleeper and not the Patriots, as I predicted. What game would you like to discuss next, Damon? The floor is
Uh,
yours.
You left it for me, so I'll take it. I'll take the Bills Ravens. The
Yep.
41-40 epic comeback on Sunday Night Football. What an awesome game. The two teams, I would say, we did have highest in our rankings when we were doing our record predictions. I believe you had the Ravens at a modest 16-1, and I had the Bills at
Yeah.
15-2. So we both were pretty high on these teams, and I think, we had the other ones respectively in the second spot. And this game showed why, because both teams looked absolutely unstoppable on offense, as you might imagine by the 81 total points that were scored. And just like the Vikings Bears game, it was a tale of two halves, or two and a quarter, and then like a quarter and a half. This game had the delay? Question mark.
I don't think this
Nope.
one was
I'm thinking of a
delayed.
different game. Don't worry about me. There
Well,
was a
you
game
could
I
be
was
thinking of like four different games. I swear there
Yeah,
were more
there's a lot
rain
of
delays than I've
delays.
ever seen.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of delays. But yeah, the Ravens were up 40-25, I believe, and
Mhm.
the Bills score 16 unanswered to take the victory here. Caused mostly by a collapse on defense and a punch out of Derrick Henry losing the football on a crucial run to drain the clock. The Bills end up scoring, taking the lead, and ultimately taking the win. Josh Allen looked awesome. Josh Allen made me lose in fantasy football because of the fourth quarter alone. Basically, I think he had two rushing touchdowns. Thanks, Josh Allen. I really appreciated that. Um, but no, he's awesome, showing that you don't really like. Again, this is not a team we think has an amazing elite superstar wide receiver or pass catcher in general. They just have a super awesome quarterback that can make everybody look awesome. I think Keon Coleman went into the fourth quarter with one catch and finished the game with eight catches and a touchdown. So out of nowhere, he's just like, "You're my number one guy now," and he was awesome. Shakir was kind of that guy earlier on in the game. I think Dalton Kincaid caught a touchdown as well. James Cook looked pretty good. Just offense clicking on all cylinders. On the other side of the ball, Derrick Henry. I, I keep thinking that it's going to happen where he regresses, and then he like grabs another human being and throws him into the ground so hard that I don't understand how that occurs, and outruns everyone else for like a 60-yard touchdown. And I don't get it because he's huge, and he's also incredibly fast. Most rushing yards of the week out of every running back, I believe. Lamar Jackson looked pretty good himself. Got Zay Flowers involved quite a bit on offense. No one else really stuck out in terms of the pass catchers, except for an awesome DeAndre Hopkins one-handed touchdown catch. I don't know if you saw that clip. Go watch it if you didn't. Bills defenders behind him. The ball is in front of him. He has to reach out like this and kind of gets his fingertips on the end and like brings it in with one hand as he's going down into the end zone. It was an awesome play to watch. Ultimately, two awesome teams that had an awesome game, and I think I learned nothing. I think I think they're both going to be amazing, and that's what I saw. So yeah.
Um, no, that's awesome. Sounds like a very Isaac Tesla-esque touchdown catch.
Yes, yeah, yeah. You should have mentioned that. What a catch that was.
That was such a great yeah, I mean if you're thinking of I will go find this D Hop catch, but the one lone bright spot third receiver for the Lions made an extremely electric catch in that game. But the Ravens now have to win out. And because I picked the Lions to beat the Packers in my season prediction, I don't mind if the Ravens go 15-2 and the Lions take that game back from them. Um, I mean, I think this is just like when you lose by one, it's disappointing to lose by 15 or to lose a 15-point lead, give up a 15-point lead.
hmm
Just not the kind of finish you want to have if you're the Ravens. And I think if this was a game where no one had a lead of greater than 10 and, you're within 3 points of each other for the entire fourth quarter, and it just happens to fall the Bills' way, maybe you feel a little bit better if you're a Ravens fan. Kicker Tyler Loop of the Ravens also missed an extra point this game, obviously losing by one. That's a pretty consequential kick.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think this is a show of two teams at the height of their powers. And if week one bears true for the Chiefs, and to speak truth about the Chiefs' quality as a team, maybe this is the year where one of them breaks through and makes it to the Super Bowl. But if you're the Bills, you're flying high. A resilient win like that speaks well for your team, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. Feels real good. Feels. I mean, and even at a disappointing loss is giving up a 16 point in the fourth quarter comeback against the team you probably think is your biggest or second biggest rival to contend in the AFC this year is disappointing. You still scored 40 points on. That's
Yeah. Right. You just need one more thing to go your way, right? And that game can change. If that ball isn't punched out of Derrick Henry's arms, which I imagine is a 1 in 100 chance.
it's a feat unlike no
It's a
other.
feat, right? If Derrick Henry holds onto that ball, right, then we're talking about the Ravens is looking like the class of the AFC, no question, right? So,
hmm
I think in that respect, you wish you could have that back. Disappointing way for the game to end, but it is what it is. And Matt Prater, Bills kicker,
Oh
former
yes,
Lion
yes,
legend,
yes, yes.
basically signed off the street,
Signed over the weekend.
signed over the weekend, delivers a game-winning kick in what I would say, is unquestionably game of the week. Um,
hmm
it's awesome for him. It was a chip shot field goal, but he is. I think he might be as old as the scorer. Actually, he might be 41. So
He's up
for
there.
him, yeah, for him to come out, him to come out of nowhere, it's really cool to see that.
Another play of controversy that is worth talking about. Right before the second half was over, Josh Allen threw a very long pass. I believe it was to Dalton Kincaid, and Kincaid, I believe, went out of bounds. I like watched this happen live, and I can't remember. Um, and originally the clock said all zeros, but they went back and looked at it, gave him 1 second back, allowing the Bills to kick a field goal right before half ended, in which Matt Prater made. So 3 points they got there in what a Ravens fan may tell you was a controversial call. And maybe other people would tell you it was controversial too, because it was very close.
Well, Justin Tucker should have had to take a kick that was 5 yards longer when he set the NFL distance record for field goals. So all comes back around in the end. This is not a Lions podcast. Anyway, anyway, I want to talk about a game that was not on my radar at all. Let's take a break. That game was so epic, so worth discussing.
Okay.
Here's a contest that got rained out of everyone's memories after a rain delay. The Jaguars finished off the Panthers 26-10. Um, and this was an AFC NFC cross conference showdown between two teams that I don't think have a ton of rivalry history,
Two
and
number 1 picks go at it.
the Bryce Young, Trevor Lawrence showdown. Um, yeah, match of the ages for sure. Do you have any takes from this outcome? Do you feel like this speaks to the Panthers and Jaguars or in any meaningful way?
Um, I mean, I mentioned earlier with the Tank Bigsby trade, ETN looked like he's going to get a lot of use in this Liam Cohen offense. Probably worth mentioning Brian Thomas Jr. didn't have a ton of connection with Trevor Lawrence in this one. Did have more targets ultimately than Travis Hunter, who played mostly on the offensive side of the ball, as we expected by their depth chart. Um, Worth mentioning Brian Thomas Jr. A lot of connection with Mac Jones last year after Trevor Lawrence went out. So now that Trevor Lawrence is back, not seeing him have a great week one, just a slight cause for concern if you're a Thomas fantasy manager, because obviously you want to see him get on the field and catch the ball a lot. So hopefully they can kind of add that element back to their offense. Was hoping the Panthers looked a little better than they did. I do think I know the Jags had 26, but I think their defense, from what I remember, was more respectable than I thought it was going to be. I think the offense is kind of what sputtered a lot of the time. Didn't really feel like they got anything going until near the end of the game.
Yeah, it looks like Bryce had two picks, which just doesn't set up your team to do well, right? Especially depending on that field position, you're not giving your defense much of a chance there. Yeah, I mean, it looks like I was looking at this game because they were talking about Travis Hunter on Heed the Call, and I think I was just curious. Hey, what kind of game did Hunter have? 6 catches, 33 yards on offense, and one assisted tackle on defense. So, um, he
Top
was
10
not necessarily.
corner and top 10 receiver. Let's go.
That's the standard. Brenton Strange, tight end, led the Jags with 59 receiving yards this game. So maybe it was
Four
just a more
targets, four
grounded.
catches, baby.
Yep. Maybe this is just ETN was the biggest part of the game script here. Maybe you're playing with short fields, limiting some of your needs there, but this was not necessarily the most explosive offensive performance from the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence under 200 yards through the air. It seems like they just had an efficient day on the ground, some mistakes by the Panthers, and there you go. Still waiting for Travis Hunter to be super electric, but cool to see they put him in on both sides. Either way, now that I've taken truly the game of the week off the slate,
Hmm.
what would you like
Maybe
to
my
bring up
next
next
pick,
here?
tough. Yeah, you mentioned a lack of offense. I'll talk about a game that had not necessarily a lack of offense, but a lot of defense. Broncos Titans.
Yeah.
Broncos end up winning 20-12. Cam Ward, I think, looked relatively okay as a number 1 overall pick for the Titans. We expected the Broncos defense to be a tough matchup, and they were. I mean, they looked awesome on defense. And surprisingly, the Titans looked awesome on defense too.
Hmm.
Bo Nix threw a couple picks in this game. He had a kind of a rough start. It wasn't really towards until the end of the game that they finally feel like calmed down and settled in. Evan Ingram left with a calf strain, not a hamstring injury, calf strain in the fourth quarter, waiting to hear on that from their tight end position. Other than that, it's kind of the things you expect. A little bit of Cortland Sutton. They drafted R.J. Harvey. He was kind of having a split in the backfield with J.K. Dobbins, who they signed this offseason. And then on the other side of the ball, Tony Pollard, a ton of touches in this game, both catches and rushing attempts. No Tyjae Spears as he's on IR, so that makes a lot of sense there. And no receiver really stuck out to me as like, oh, that's going to be Kim Ward's number one guy. But again, that could just be because the Broncos defense is really strong. So a lot of defense both ways. I expected it one way. I didn't really expect it the other way.
Yeah, I wasn't able to catch a ton of this game because it was rolling right into the Lions game, but I wanted to at least get some eyes on Cam Ward with sort of the Titans awareness, if not allegiance, from being a Tennessean. Um, and I think if you can stay within striking distance against a team that a lot of people were hyping up throughout the year, that's a good thing. And so do you feel like the Titans defense in what you saw was making plays, or do you feel like the Broncos were giving them plays and they were solid enough to take advantage? Like, were these interceptions stealing from the offense, or were they just taking what was given to them, you think?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of both. Like, if I don't know who the Titans play next week, but I can scroll down to our week two preview, the Rams. If they have a good
Mm.
showing against the Rams, I'll be like, okay, this may be like a legit unit. Because it is week one and it could be fluky, but I do think that it was not entirely, Bo Nix and the Broncos offense struggling. I think the Titans were kind of putting their imprint on this game a little bit.
Okay. I mean, if you're a Titans fan and one side of the ball is popping off, giving you something to be optimistic about, and Cam Ward um, looks better than Will Levis, I think that's a good day in Tennessee. Um, let's talk about a game that I think is the reason why you just can't take week one at face value per se. Okay. The Dolphins were sent to
No, you got to use the word I wrote on there. I wrote this word very specifically.
okay. The Dolphins got shellacked by the Colts. Uh
What were you going to say though? Now I'm
33 to
curious.
8 on the road. They were shellacked. They were sent to the Shadow Realm.
There you go.
Uh
I can appreciate a good
absolutely.
Yu-Gi-Oh reference too. So
That's what I was loading up for. I wanted to give Shellac the floor and then follow up with my boy Yami Yugi. Yeah, absolutely. This is that Blue Eyes White Dragon.
it sure is on my desk.
Um, I love like the just Seto Kaiba, great character. Anyway, before I get too lost in Yu-Gi-Oh, let me come back around. You noted here in our notes the first week one win for the Colts since 2013, which is quite the striking statistic. They've had multiple coaches in that span, so I don't know if it speaks to anything baked into the franchise per se, but nice to break that. Uh, Daniel Jones is like the first quarterback since like all time. Okay, yeah, I guess week one. Okay, CBS Sports Research. I'm on CBS Sports. Week one marked the first time a Daniel Jones led team scored on every first half drive in all of his starts and became the first team since at least 2000 regular season or postseason to score on every possession. Granted, that doesn't matter quite as much as it sounds like because there are a lot of very successful offenses who will take a knee in victory formation or going into a half, and that doesn't necessarily indicate their success. But nonetheless, Daniel Jones looked like the second coming of insert favorite quarterback here. Michael Pittman putting up a pretty solid performance on my fantasy bench. You look at this result and you say, man, the Colts must be the best team in the league. They beat their opponent by 25. This has Mirage written all over it to me. All it takes is a decent Colts start and a bad Dolphins start to make this mismatch happen. Dolphins corner Storm Duck is apparently out indefinitely with an ankle injury, which is one of 85,279 corners that have been injured for them this season already.
Yeah, there's a
Um,
reason I put Storm Duck on there. That third string corner who was starting because their other corners are already injured,
right.
and now he's also injured.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Eesh.
I mean, this might say more about the Dolphins having a really low floor than the Colts having a really high ceiling. This might speak to the fact that the Colts could have a decent offense all year. I won't take that away from them. But when you're a heavily depleted Dolphins team, you're not going to put yourself in good position to kind of run up the score and keep the game competitive, right? And I think sometimes runaway games like this can happen less because one team is truly dominant and more because another team just puts the other squad in a good position. That said, unfortunately, Colts Dolphins didn't make my quad view on YouTube as I was enjoying the
Wow.
12 o'clock
What a
slate.
hater.
If you can believe it, I actually couldn't even find it. I actually did want to watch some of this game and see what was going on, but I couldn't find it until later in my viewing experience. But
Couldn't find it on all of the only legal websites that we use. Makes sense.
well, I was a YouTube TV merchant this week, and I think will be going forward. So Goodell cannot strike me with a lightning bolt and laser beam or whatever. I
I
can't
actually
get.
bought every cable channel just to watch all these games. So
That's so epic. I hope you enjoy all the other unique content you can find only on Peacock. Um, Enjoy the
thinking about
Office, extended cut
streaming Young
episodes.
Sheldon. Yeah.
Yeah, you could actually do a quad box view of the Sunday Night Football, Young Sheldon, George and Mandy's first marriage, and I don't know, whatever else.
Big Bang Theory.
Uh,
There you go.
Big
Get the
Bang
big
Theory,
three
yeah,
in there.
the triumvirate. I'm really glad you knew that Georgie and Mandy's first marriage was part of the Big Bangiverse.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Of
yeah.
course.
Anyway, sorry, Dolphins and Colts fans. I know you probably didn't expect this to be a Yu-Gi-Oh slash Big Bang Theory,
Can I talk about
fan
this game?
segment. Please tell me all your thoughts and feelings.
Here's my biggest overreaction from week one.
Give it to me.
The Dolphins are going to have the number one overall pick because
Wow.
they look like they are just in shambles. Nothing was working for them on defense with all their injuries in the secondary, and nothing was working on offense. Tua looked bad. Their offense looked bad. And it didn't look like there was any sort of, coaching adjustment from Mike McDaniel to make that not the case. And it was a tough watch if you're a Dolphins fan, because like you mentioned, the other part of this, right, is the Colts coming out of this like we are awesome, and that's probably not true. But I think the Dolphins being horrible could be true.
I'm really curious to see, a lot of people speculating, oh, Tyreek Hill is definitely going to get traded. Kind of believe
Hmm.
that. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know what team feels like they're a Tyreek Hill specifically
the
away.
Chiefs.
See, I thought about that, but they traded him away. But I could totally see them sending a third round pick or second round pick, adding Tyreek Hill back, and then, you know, with Worthy doing some, yeah, I mean, it could be, that'd be huge firepower for their offense. But I could totally see this season ending. I don't want to wish for any player to get injured, but Tua having consistent injury problems, Tyreek having one foot out the door. I think you're right. I mean, I think this could not only be the team that is the number one overall pick, but also is like the least desirable place to coach just because there's so few blue chip guys to then build around that are young and interesting.
It was a
Maybe they'll
tough
figure it
watch.
out. Yeah,
It
that's
was a
tough.
tough watch. I will tell you about not a tough watch. I will go all the way back to our first game of this NFL season. And of course, that is the Cowboys at Eagles, in which the Eagles take a 24-20 victory. Honestly, a pretty stellar game to kick the season off. The Cowboys were a lot more competitive than I thought they would be. Dak Prescott looked pretty good. Javonte
Mm-hmm.
Williams, we talked about earlier, looked pretty good from that backfield, surprisingly, just kind of getting what he wanted in the goal line against the Eagles. CD Lamb, I think, had four drops in this game, one of which was probably their last shot in a kind of touchdown winning drive, and unfortunately did not go their way. I believe it was like fourth and three. Ball is snapped pass rush is coming, and Dak just kind of aired one out to CD. Probably a little overthrown, a tough catch to make, but overall did have a couple of drops that game. Surprisingly, the least controversial player in this game, George Pickens. He looked fine too for the Cowboys. So happy to see that. Cowboys offense pretty good. Cowboys defense surprisingly good, absent Micah, except they definitely didn't get enough pass rush, could not contain Jalen Hurts. He scrambled for a couple touchdowns himself because without anyone to kind of be that presence, they couldn't really stop him. Saquon didn't have a crazy game though. And speaking of the Eagles, Saquon was fine. I mentioned the Jalen Hurts scrambling touchdowns. AJ Brown didn't get a target or catch until like the fourth quarter with 3 minutes left, which was kind of insane. Devontae Smith, Heisman winner, Devontae Smith, you got to make sure you throw that in there, was okay. He was okay. Eagles defense definitely looked young, definitely looked like they missed some of those pieces they lost this offseason, which is probably why the Cowboys found some success against them. And of course, we can't talk about the game without mentioning that right after kickoff, before the Cowboys' first offensive snap, I believe 6 seconds into the game, Jalen Carter spit on Dak Prescott. Now, when you go back and look at the footage, you will notice that Dak kind of spits first. They line up, and he kind of nods his head just in the general direction, spits, and then Jalen Carter's kind of walking around outside the huddle, maybe apparently mouthing some words to one of the Cowboys' rookie offensive linemen. And Dak walks up, you're not going to talk to my guy that way. They kind of butt heads. Jalen Carter spits on him right in front of a referee, gets ejected from the game. And there goes their best defensive lineman for an entire game. Luckily, they win, so I think this would look a lot worse on Jalen Carter if they didn't. I think if you're Jalen Carter, don't do something this stupid. I think in the NFL, it is often the second person that gets the punishment because the first one is often not seen. By the time the second person reacts, their commotion is noticed, and they get kind of the foot of that punishment. Dak did talk about afterwards, like he spits all the time. Basically, that's what he does. It wasn't at anyone or specifically at anyone. But in the clip, you see him like spit and kind of smile and nod his head. It's up for interpretation. Who knows? And the NFL ruled today that Jalen Carter was fined 57,000 and some odd amount of dollars, which is how much he makes in 1 week. Basically, that's how they came up with that number. And he would serve a 1 game suspension, but they counted Thursday's victory over the Cowboys as that 1 game suspension, so he will be suiting up for the Chiefs this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it's definitely behavior you don't want to promote if you're the league.
They
Ultimately,
have a
though,
big
it
focus on
was
gamesmanship this year.
yeah. That's apparently the whole narrative is gamesmanship, but ultimately a non-violent act. We'll talk about. I believe it was Friday's game. Yeah, that there was a player who smacked Travis Kelce, but it was an open-handed smack, and so he was not ejected. And it was all, color analyst Rich Eisen would talk about the rest of the game as the open-handed, smack to someone's face, not counting for ejection the way a closed hand would.
Not a
That's
punch.
policy. Yeah.
Yeah, because punching your football helmet is really going to hurt you.
Right. I mean, it's on the one hand, it's like you're taking a swing at somebody,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think honestly, if I'm the league, I would rather, I don't know. It goes back and forth. The spitting is so disrespectful, but it's not violent. The smack is violent, but it's kind of a physical sport, and I feel like that kind of adrenaline runs high. I don't know. I think you could have that debate every way to Sunday, but either way, not a very
What-
smart thing for Jalen Carter to do. And I think regardless of whether you think Dak did it on purpose, his was definitely less obviously targeted than Jalen's, who spit quite literally on his chest.
Mhm.
Um, there's kind of no ambiguity there. I think the AJ Brown thing is so interesting. AJ Brown, who would be a number one receiver on probably 10 teams in the league right now, and is kind of invisible in this offense. And I feel like this was a narrative going into the playoffs last year as well. And it's not like you want to get rid of a really good player necessarily, but you have to ask yourself, I think at some point, like if you're not going to use him, and you have Devonta Smith. I feel like Jahan Dotson made a play or two this game. You just wonder, right? You wonder whether AJ Brown is being utilized to the fullest in that offense, but um, probably happier to have him than not. I think CeeDee Lamb gave this game away. Just in terms of if he made those catches, I think we're looking at the Cowboys at least, being in a much stronger conversation to potentially have won this game. I felt like the Cowboys had a lot of good schematic advantage on that last drive that was sort of stifled by the drops. But yes, a great start to the season. Cowboys looking surprisingly competitive with no Parsons, and it was just enough to get the adrenaline going and all the fun of a rain delay as well.
Oh
I
yeah,
was working
I
on
think that was maybe the
Thursday.
delay I was thinking about earlier
I mean, there was
because
also
it
the
was
fact that,
long.
yeah, it was long. Panthers and Jags had a delay that was long as well, but I think that game wasn't on an island, so no one was,
Right.
you could watch a different game or tune into other scores while that was happening. This was the only game, right? So you just have to listen to everyone in the tunnel um, talk about the game and re-talk about the game and talk about it a third
Hmm.
time. Um,
They got
and
to come
listen
up with
to,
a better plan.
I agree, actually. I think
I had to mute it. I was like, okay, I can't listen to them talk about this game anymore.
I think at some point, it's tough because it's week one. I think if it's week three, and it's the Thursday night and you have a rain delay, I would have a highlight package from week two
Sure, sure,
ready,
sure.
something like that.
Makes sense.
Um,
Come
or
on, the
maybe
preseason
like
highlight package. Duh.
that would have been epic. I mean, maybe you have some of that, like, they do those interviews where they go and they'll like talk to the coaches in the facility or whatever, and they'll
Yeah.
show clips of that before the game. Maybe you have an extended cut or you rerun it in case you didn't see it before the game
Mm,
started. Either way, I just feel like, man,
this guy's
no
smart.
one needs the tunnel talk. No offense, Jack Collinsworth. Anyway, uh, let's pop over to I want to make sure we get to predictions for next week and get to our next wheel team. So I'll just pull this one off the board super fast. Bengals sneak past the Browns 17-16 in Cleveland. Wow, the Bengals have beaten their away game or their early season woes, right? It's clear that playing the starters in the preseason has made this outfit electric. I don't think so. Cleveland
No.
had a missed field goal. If that field goal is made and all else stayed the same, Cleveland wins this game. Joe Flacco, obviously the offense didn't put up a ton of points, but it seemed like they were moving the ball with some regularity. I don't think this is a case where Cleveland lucked into its 16 points. It looked like they were making some movement there. The kind of thing, wonder if it keeps legendary quarterback Dylan Gabriel on the bench for a little while. I think this was by no means you've embarrassed yourself game for Cleveland. Obviously, missing that field goal is really challenging there. And you wish you could have that one back, of course. But things happen, and that's the kind of thing that's going to hold a team back from being like a 7-10 team and keeps them as a 4-13 team, something like that, is having those special teams miscues, of course. But uh, Joe Flacco, looking at it here, 31 of 45 for 290 yards through a couple picks. That's not great, but I don't know. I think there's something to be said for having some success there. It doesn't appear, having just signed, that Judkins got any time in this game, really.
I don't think he played at
And,
all.
yeah.
Tell you what,
And
Dylan Sampson caught 8 passes out of the backfield.
that's a lot. That says there's a plan for Dylan Sampson in this offense, right? And you wonder if Judkins would be in that position had he been with the team the entire offseason. Looks like a bit of a sleepy week for the receivers in Cincinnati as well, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
We're used to 38-35 games for Cincinnati, so low offensive output. I think they're happy to sneak away with a win, especially if they're a team that improves as they normally do as the season goes on. Getting an early win where a loss might have been sets them up well to maybe have a slightly stronger record heading into the back stretch, such that if teams like the Steelers are legit, they can at least have this win in their back pocket.
All fair. All fair. Yeah. Surprising amount of points, 17 for this Bengals outfit. But I like you said, they improve as the season goes on, and I expect they will do just that.
Yeah, that's all I've got for Bengals Browns. I had it on briefly. I was not necessarily watching this game with the same fervor that I had my eyes on something like Jets Steelers.
Sure. I will
What's
jump
next?
over. I'll jump to Buccaneers scoring down the stretch in the fourth quarter to eke out a win against the Falcons in Atlanta, 23 to 20. What did we see in this game? Emeka Ibuka, two touchdowns, only four catches. Two of them were touchdowns. Good looking touchdowns for him as well. So, shout out to the rookie already getting active. Of course, Chris Godwin placed on IR right before the season started, but he's expected to be back by week 5. I think this could be a case of once you let the genie out of the bottle, are you going to be able to put it back? What are you going to do with Ibuka once Godwin comes back? Are you just going to have a lot of three receiver sets and they kind of all get involved? I think that'll be interesting to see. Bucky Irving clearly looks like the lead back over Rashad White. He had kind of a cool touchdown catch from the backfield in this game, too. Over on the Falcons side, at least offensively, Michael Penix looked okay. I think he looked okay from what I gathered. A fair amount of Bijan touches. We loved that for me, who drafted him number 1 in fantasy in my other league that we're not in. So I definitely needed that.
Did you win in that
Drake
league?
yes, I did. 1-0.
Nice.
1-0. Let's go. Um, yes, funnily enough, I had Justin Jefferson in our league going against Sophia Monday Night Football. I was going against Justin Jefferson in my other league. So it was, one of the situations I was going to win and one of them I was going to lose. There was a happy medium in which I win in one league and still win in the other league. That didn't happen, but that's okay. Um, Drake London sprained his shoulder. He's day to day. Darnell Mooney was inactive for this game, kind of got injured at some point in the offseason and hasn't quite shown up yet. So the receiving corps is looking a little thin over there in Atlanta. I would say I didn't watch a ton of this game. It was really just the end. Buccaneers offense looked solid down the stretch to make that kind of game-winning drive. And I think overall, this is a close game between what ultimately will be the two most competitive teams in the NFC South. So you like to see that.
Yeah. I don't know much to say besides the fact that Falcons had the Bucks number last year. So if you're the Bucks, you got to be happy. Um, Baker scoring late to take this game for the Buccaneers. Definitely a close contest. And if I'm not mistaken, Younghoe Koo missed a field goal in this game as well. It seemed like
That guy's always missing field goals. I feel like every year I'm like, why is Young Wei Koo missing these field goals? Yet he's still here.
definitely a question. Yeah, Falcons. Oh, this is Falcons to bring in competition for Younghoe Koo. Interesting. Um, yeah, that's definitely tough for them there. Um, I think that if you're the Bucks, seeing something out of Egbuka, right? 4 catches isn't game breaking, but 2 touchdowns certainly is. I also know because Baker is my fantasy quarterback, pretty deep strike to Egbuka on that second touchdown pass. So yeah, if you're a Bucks fan, it's nice to not be under the Falcons' thumb. Uh, I'll jump us over to Commanders Giants. Commanders won 21-6. I kind of wanted to maybe see more dominance out of the Commanders if the Giants only had 6 points to muster in this game. This was one in my quad box I had an eye on. Um, didn't seem like, the part of the game that I caught and paid the most attention to was at the end of the first half, sort of an awkward sequence. Jaden Daniels leads the Commanders down to like the 5 yard line, somewhere in that range, definitely close to scoring. Less than 10 seconds on the clock, throws a pass into the end zone, and it's ruled intentional grounding. They don't have any timeouts to stop a 10-second runoff, and the half ends without any points. Things happen. And against a Giants team that wasn't putting up a ton of resistance, those mistakes can happen. It's the kind of thing you want to watch for against a stronger opponent, though, right? Again, those things happen. I don't think Jaden Daniels is like, oh, sophomore slump incoming, whatever. Stuff happens. But really disappointed to see the Giants with such a low scoring output. I think if you're a lot of teams in the league And granted, this was a low scoring week of football across the board, but you're happy to hold a team to 21, right? And, if the defense is keeping the Commanders somewhat in check, right? I'm sure the Commanders playing a little reserved at the end of the game, but you just want to see a little more offensive explosion. And it 6 points speaks for itself, right? Clearly the offense wasn't doing enough to keep the team in the game. So good for the Commanders. Clean up that situational football at the end of the first half there. Otherwise, nice start. Didn't see a ton from Krosky Merritt this week, who I had circled as a fantasy sleeper, and you put on your team as a fantasy sleeper. But maybe his role will expand in the weeks to come.
Hey, he was pretty good. He ended up getting a touchdown.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, with a burst of athleticism and speed. Worth mentioning, Chris Rodriguez, healthy scratch, didn't play, and
Huh.
um, Jeremy McNichols didn't get really any run either. It was really just Krosky Merritt and Austin Eckler. So
Maybe
I'll
maybe it's
take
just
it.
the first half he looked a little sleepy and then he turned it on in the second half or something like that.
Yeah, he seems to have climbed to the second spot at least already. So we are liking that. I am liking that for sure. Um, yeah, I don't have much to say about this game. Jaden Daniels' connection with Terry was not amazing. Debo Samuel looked like a playable NFL player, surprisingly. So that was cool. Giants, I know after the game, they were already like, is Russell Wilson going to start next to week 2? Like Brian Daboll didn't commit to it right away, but he did at some point over the last couple of days. Was like Russell Wilson is going to start week 2, despite leading the mighty Giants offense to 6 points. So we will see as time goes on. Definitely didn't tune in a lot to this one because I kind of knew that this was going to be the outcome.
Um, who is the Giants' leading rusher this week? I'm just looking at the box score here.
Oh, jeez. It's going to be a hard question. Okay, I'll go with. It was it Devin Singletary?
It was Russell Wilson.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. I was like, is it a quarterback? Yeah, I know Tracy and Scatterbo didn't have a great game, so.
yeah, Devin Singletary chipping in 3 carries for 9 yards. Uh, yeah, the team combined for. Yeah, I'm doing some mental math here. Looks like 74 yards on the ground, and 30 of those came from the running backs. Not a recipe for success. Maybe you're thrown into obvious passing situations early, but when you're only down by 15, I don't really feel like that's true. At least until maybe the fourth
And
quarter.
it's not like they were down 15 the whole game.
Of course, right? Russell Wilson making 37 pass attempts. I feel like any Giants quarterback making 37 pass attempts isn't the script, especially I feel like Tyrone Tracy had some pop coming out of last year, some love.
Hmm.
Um, and Cam Scatterbo is such a fun running style. Either way, man, not a lot of optimism to be drawn from this game for the Giants.
Yes, sirree. Let me take you over to maybe our last snooze fest here. Cardinals beating the Saints 2013 in New Orleans. Okay. Trey Benson got a little more work into the backfield than I was expecting already in his kind of reserve role behind James Conner. Marvin Harrison Jr. looked pretty solid, caught a touchdown, I believe. Kyler Murray, I think, had an illness the morning of the game, but ended up playing anyways. The Saints look like a bad offense led by a bad quarterback. And that's what we thought they were going to be. And then their defense is led by a couple of really old guys and some whatever guys. Honestly, not a lot of takeaways from this game. These are two teams I think are going to be relatively subpar. The Saints more so than the Cardinals. So therefore, the Cardinals winning makes a lot of sense to me. Nothing really. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe this occurred.
Yeah, this was one of my quad box games, and it did not help me glean any meaningful insight about these clubs. The one thing I'll say is I don't think this was a fake 13 points from the Saints. I think this was in that one score range for most of the game from what I saw. It didn't seem like the Cardinals were up 20-3 in the fourth quarter, and then the Saints put up 10 garbage time points or anything. It seems like they stayed in it here. Yeah, and in fact, yeah, it looks like going into halftime it was 17 to 10, and then in the second half a field goal for each team, and so the most the Cardinals led by in that second half was 10. So it wasn't like they utterly embarrassed themselves and were completely out of the contest here. And if you're a Saints fan, that's probably more than you can hope for. Spencer Rattler getting the start. At what point do you see the Shuckster? Who's to say?
Mm.
Um, yeah, I have no more. I should just stop talking because there's just so little that I have to say. Uh, and we got other things to talk about. We gotta give our sizzling previews for week 2 here. So I'll take us to the Friday game, and I'll leave the divisional contest the other divisional contest, I guess, for last. The
There
Chargers.
are there are 3 games left.
There's 3 games. What's the one I'm missing? We'll get to it. I'm sure.
Rams Texans. We haven't talked about Rams Texans.
Oh my gosh, I totally blanked on Rams Texans. You're so right. Well, I'm doing Chargers Chiefs. This was the Friday night game in Brazil. As I mentioned earlier, there was
Yeah.
an open faced slap incident that did not result in ejection. And the Chargers surprisingly took this game. I don't think that was what a lot of people were expecting. 27-21 win.
And their
Travis
home
Kelsey,
field of Brazil.
their home field of Brazil. There was a lot of uproar I saw before the game because both end zones, like each team had an end zone, which is sort of the new trend
Yeah,
for international games apparently. And so it's like, okay, what part of this is home, right?
right.
Um, and I think that's a fair point. I believe that at the very least, if you're gonna do, I mean, no team's gonna have 2 international games in a season is the problem. But if it's like, man, if you're gonna be home, air quotes, in Brazil, the Chiefs should have to do a home game in like Germany,
Yeah, yeah.
somewhere later in their season to kind of give that some sort of fairness. But
I do have a question about NFL schedule 17 games. How do they decide how many home games team gets since it's an automatic? Is it like one year you have 9 home games and 8 away games, and the next game you have 8 home games and 9 away games?
I have to assume that's what it is. Yeah, I actually haven't given that a ton of thought. I mean, the divisional matchups are always going to be one home, one away, and so then
Right.
you have 11 games left, and yeah, I guess it just alternates. Which is actually, so let me go ahead and put this out there for the world. I'm not saying the league should go to 18 games, but 17, really? We went with a
So
prime number,
yeah,
a
it's a
prime number of
strange,
games. It's
strange
crazy.
option.
You can't break the season into thirds. Can't break it into halves. Can't break it into quarters. Can't break it into ninths or sixths or nope. You can break it into
17.
one 17 game unit. It's absurd.
Yeah.
I I understand. Okay, it adds an extra contest, whatever. I mean, were we whatever? We're gonna get an 18th game in 5 years, and then things will at least be reasonably divisible. It's silly. And it creates situations exactly like you're saying. Oh, so one year you just happen to have more away games, and the next year you happen to have more home games, and
I feel like as
that's
soon
just
as
how it
I
is.
I would have made that thought as I was thinking about a 17 game season, I would have been like, we can't do 17 games actually. That's stupid. We can't do
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah, that should probably
that.
have been enough, right? And
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, the 17th game is an international game for every team. Because that would actually maybe work, right? You have 8 home, 8 away, and 1 international that's really neither.
Yeah.
Um, and then I would say, okay, that's fair. Every team has to travel out of the country once, and then you have 8 home, 8 away. It's like some years you have international games. Some years all your games are 12 on Sunday, and like it just, whatever.
NFL schedule
Some
makers. Oh, goody. Also, last part about this. Sometimes there's one week every season, and I'm sure there's one week this season. I don't know what week it is. We'll have 6 teams on a bye. And if we had more even scheduling, maybe that wouldn't happen.
it's worth considering. I mean, part of that is you can't do a buy too early or too late in the season, I suppose.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I mean, you'd think, right, you could even that out a little bit. Again, I feel like there's something lost in, you know, if I'm the league, right, could you make it so that every AFC team has their bye in week 9 and every NFC team has their bye in week 10, and then you do like a conference showcase week that's just games from one conference or something, right? I don't know. I feel like there's ways to make this
What a
interesting.
disaster for fantasy football that would be.
Oh, that's true. I mean, that's true. I guess that's
Half the
true.
league is on bye. Good luck.
Um, yeah, I mean, maybe in that case, yeah, I suppose that would be a limiter. Um, that's fair, but I don't know. I think that I was listening to the Athletic Football Show and they pitched like, why isn't there just one week out of the year with no games? Could do that, right? Just like, hey, week 10 doesn't exist. Um, that could be interesting. I guess it's kind of like the All Star week in the NBA, right?
hmm
A lot of good ideas out there, but let's just make the number of games in the season indivisible. Anyway, Justin Herbert looked clutch in the Chargers Chiefs, which is um, the game of import here. 27-21 win clinched by Justin Herbert rushing for the first down to kind of bleed the clock out and box the Chiefs out of a chance to come back in this contest. Mahomes did sling a beautiful pass in the fourth quarter, just one of those jaw droppers to give the Chiefs a chance. But I think the Chargers just looked like they were firing on all cylinders and having a more complete performance. Travis Kelce knocked Xavier Worthy out of the game very early and will miss multiple weeks potentially with a shoulder injury, really limiting their weapons and opening the door for Hollywood Brown to be the primary receiver with Rashee Rice suspended. But um, you'll never guess what just happened live on air. My headphones died. But either way, quite the unexpected result, and definitely shakes up the NFC North in a way worth watching. Did I
Yes,
say NFC North?
you sure did.
I was so
My
close. I
favorite.
meant the AFC West, which is
That
radically
was,
different in
you were
multiple
right
ways.
there. You were right there.
Just right there, right on the edge. I
I'll
guess I
cover
just
our
don't know
last.
ball. Maybe that's
Wait, did you talk about the injury? That's important. We should talk about that.
say that again.
Did you talk? Did you talk about the important injury that occurred in Chiefs versus Chargers?
I talked about Xavier Worthy, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I like blanked out. I blacked out. Um, great.
My headphones died in real time, and then you said something, and then I didn't hear it because I missed my speaker up. And in case I didn't get to it, Xavier Worthy taken out of the game will likely miss several weeks, making Hollywood Brown the feature receiver with Rashee suspended.
Injured by Travis Kelce.
Which tough. I mean, you'd think Love would change him.
You'd think he's still the maddest man on earth. Last divisional matchup we will talk about in week one. Um, I already forgot what game it was. Oh yeah, the Niners beat the Seahawks 17-13. Wow, what a nail biter! What an offensive showdown between these two squads. Sam Darnold looked a little like the Sam Darnold of the past, and not like the Sam Darnold of the Vikings. But hopefully, he can turn that around at some point. No one really popped, honestly, for the Seahawks except for JSN. Jackson Smith and Jigba looked pretty good as the receiver one over there. Maybe a changing of the guard in the backfield. Zach Charbonnet got, I think, 2-1 carries over Ken Walker the third. So that was kind of interesting to see. Um, and he got some of the goal line work as well, I noticed. And then on the 49ers side, a lot of Christian McCaffrey. I think he had the most touches of anybody in all of week one, despite going into the game potentially unhealthy. It was reported on Thursday that he was kind of suffering a calf thing, and then Friday he was fine, and then he showed up for the game and had like 30 something touches. Um, didn't hit the end zone, but touched the ball a lot, moved the ball a lot for them. Who did score? George Kittle had a nice touchdown catch in the game. He exited later, injuring his hamstring. It was announced today that he's being placed on IR. He's going to be out for at least 4 weeks. I didn't write that on here. I just wrote four. He's going to be out at least four. Word weeks is important there. Other 49ers injuries, Jauan Jennings and Brock Purdy both have shoulder injuries and are day-to-day and questionable to go this Sunday in their week 2 matchup. So we will definitely monitor that. Obviously, two very important players for this offense. And their kicker, Jake Moody, struggled, missed an easy kick, a dunker, I believe it was when I was watching. And now he's been waived. He struggled some last year too. He was, I think, like a pretty early, relatively early draft pick for a kicker a couple of years ago. So for him to be waived in such a short time is unfortunate. Eddie Pinheiro is visiting the 49ers and is going to likely sign to the team to replace him for this week. Ultimately, both teams look a little sluggish on offense, I think, kind of adjusting to their new roles. I mean, this 49ers squad didn't have McCaffrey last year and had Ricky Pearsall at the end. He actually looked pretty good in this game too. Jennings, of course, injured or kind of injured. George Kittle going out with an injury. So offense was kind of all over the place. We talked about the 49ers missing all these defensive pieces as well that left in the offseason. And then, yeah, Sam Darnold and the new regime over in Seattle just didn't look super competent yet. That just may be because they need time to gel.
Yeah, Jake Moody update here on draft position. Uh, Wikipedia with some interesting stats here. Selected with the 99th overall pick.
Yeah, it's third round. It's so early.
It is so early. He's just the second kicker selected in the top 100 in the last
I know who the
15
other one is, I think.
drafts. Yeah, who is it?
Is it Roberto Aguayo?
Sure is. I believe
Let's
Aguayo was a second
go.
rounder, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, only the fifth since 2000. Obviously, haven't seen a kicker in the first round since. Dot 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 dot. Do you know?
Uh, a kicker in the first round?
It happened in both of our lifetimes.
Oh my goodness. Um, is it like an awesome legendary kicker?
He's someone you would know if you watched during his career. I think he's pretty well known. Drafted. Actually, I was not alive because I was born in September. 17th overall pick in 2000 and
Uh,
retired
Jeez.
in 2019.
That's a long career.
He's
Wow.
all-time leading scorer for the team that drafted him.
I mean, the first name that comes to mind is Adam Vinatieri.
It's a good thought. I don't think this is a Hall of Fame player. Uh, one more guess here.
Can you give me like a team? Will that help me?
He he was all-time leading scorer for the Raiders at the time that he retired.
The
And I said
Raiders. Is
Raiders.
this Sebastian Janikowski?
It is Janikowski.
I
Yeah.
thought of him and I was like, no, I was like, there's no way he played that long. I didn't realize he
I
played that
was
long.
surprised. I went on Wikipedia and I was like, oh, 2014, 2019 is a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I was thinking literally 20, like 2000 to 2013 or something like that for his
Yeah, he
career.
finished his career last season was 2018 with the Seahawks, injured in 2017, but otherwise looks like every season from 2000 to 2016 he was their guy.
That was a name that came in my head.
Yeah, I mean you have to be like
He had a
the goat,
powerful leg. He had
right?
a
Powerful.
humongous leg.
Uh, NFL records listed here: longest OT field goal, 57 yards; most field goals in one quarter, four; most attempts of 60 plus yards in career; most extra points in a Pro Bowl. That's important. 8 of those.
Woo!
And it looks like he had the longest attempt apparently with 76 yards. So
Hmm,
fascinating
that's
stuff.
crazy.
Yeah, I think that was just like a Hail Mary. Why
Sure.
not try it? He didn't make it, just so you know. Anyway, yeah, cutting Jake Moody. I think I would be shocked if we see a kicker go that high in the next decade. And
Yeah,
nice
because him
divisional
or
win for the
Aguayo didn't
Niners.
really work out.
Aguayo disappeared off the face of the earth. Um, good win for the Niners with such a banged up receiving core. I imagine CMC is going to continue to be the bell cow until you have Jauan Jennings at full strength. You have Kittle out. You'll probably get Brandon Ayuk back before you get Kittle back. I mean, it's just, you know,
It's a lot.
their pass catchers are a mess right now. So they need some health and tight, stout battle. Here's another stout battle for you. It's our last game of week one, and then we can jump into the juiciness of week two with our tagline, one sentence, shout outs for each game here.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that seg. I have not given it enough thought, but that's what makes it fun.
No, that's the best part.
It's like, God, what am I supposed to think about this game? No, but the last contest, again, the team that will decide the NFC West is the Houston Texans. And it looks like they smile on the Rams as the Rams beat them 14-9. Puka getting a concussion evaluation, but returning to the game. Um, you know, I had this marked as a loss for the Rams in my predictions just because Stafford was a question mark. Getting him back, getting him through the game is great. Um, Low scoring affair, obviously. I think we look at both of these teams in some way. I think the Texans have more of a true defensive reputation, but I wonder if this forebodes that we're going to view the Rams as a defense first squad, with Stafford keeping the offense productive, if not defining for this team, right? We think of Sean McVay as offensive. This might be a year where the defense propels the Rams as far as they will go this season, uh, just based on this initial result. But I'll pass the baton to you. If you might have caught more of this game than I did. So
I mean, I didn't watch a ton. It looked questionable for the Texans offense, as you may have gathered by the 9 points they scored. Obviously, Joe Mixon on IR to start the season. Nick Chubb, I guess, kind of their lead back. I believe Daria Gumbawale had a fumble in this game in which the Rams recovered. That was a big, crucial turning point for their kind of momentum in their win as well. You mentioned Puka, his like had a cut above his eye, he was bleeding when he got evaluated for that concussion, but he came back and everything was fine. Yeah, this, to your point about the defense maybe being a thing, and we kind of saw this last year. Jared Verse won Defensive Rookie of the Year. They have a lot of kind of guys on that team that came together, I think, surprisingly, because a couple of years ago their defense was like so young that it was like a big, big question mark. Now it seems like some of those pieces have panned out. But the comparison I was going to make is something like Peyton Manning's Broncos, where Peyton
that came to
Manning,
mind for me literally as well. That nice.
yeah, like he's just a good veteran quarterback that'll keep the ship afloat on offense, and then the defense will be so good that it wins you games. Maybe if you can keep teams like the Texans, who I think we both think are a good team, maybe not a great team, maybe, it's hard to tell. Is this a great defensive game from the Rams? Or just a poor offensive showing from the Texans, or a combination of both. But if they can, continue to hold teams to a low total, I think they will have to score more than 14 points probably to win most of those games. But it's still a good sign on the defensive side of the ball, at least.
Yeah, I think hopefully you're early in Peyton's Broncos tenure, right? I think there was a period where he was sharp enough to keep that offense moving, and he was playing at a high level, and then near the end he was kind of being dragged, mercifully across into that kind of last Super Bowl. I feel like Brock Osweiler doing a lot of work there as well. And so, it probably all depends on Stafford's health. I think if you get above average Stafford play and the defense plays like a top 5 unit, you're looking at a really strong playoff team here. And as for the Texans, this is again, I think, I mentioned earlier with the Lions a little bit how there are some teams that are innocent until proven guilty, and some teams guilty until proven innocent. I think the Texans offense coming in with a bit of a shaky reputation after last year, and we'll accept low scoring from the Rams because we believe in the Rams offensive scheme and talent. Texans, we might need a little more after the shine comes off Stroud. Any other thoughts on week one, or is it time to move on to week two?
No, 6.5 hours later, we can talk about week two of the
We
NFL
should we
season.
should we should discuss how to take a few of these contests we have less emotional reactions to, and like maybe we have one sentence reactions to a few of the
Sure,
games as well, and
sure,
something
sure, sure.
like that.
Yeah, we're
But
workshopping it.
first, we got to spin the wheel. And I am so excited to see, will I
Is this
evaluate
the?
a team that isn't mine this week? That would be interesting.
I'm going to share my screen over here. I believe I'm sharing the right screen.
Yeah,
Um,
right to
do you
me.
see the wheel? You see the wheel?
I
Awesome.
do.
So the Raiders are off. The Lions are off because, of course, those are the two teams that we got last week. Shall I spin for yourself or me first?
We spun for me first last time. Let's spin for you first this time.
Yeah, Lions' first spin of the season was crazy.
That was nuts. What are the odds?
All right, let's see which team I will be really tuning into this week. Great, a team I just watched, the Patriots. I'm really excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah, two back-to-back weeks of the Patriots, baby. They play the Dolphins. That's awesome. I'm really excited about that game. What am I looking forward to watching the Patriots this week? After I think struggling against what people might have thought was going to be a subpar Raiders defensive unit, can they crush the Dolphins that looked horrible against the Indianapolis Colts? That's what you hope if you're the Patriots to kind of have a shot here in year two as a potential wild card team, developing some of those young guys. Definitely the running back thing I think is something I'm going to monitor too. It feels like as the season progresses, Ramondre, who is not that old by the way, he's just looks kind of old because he's a running back that has gotten some amount of usage in the NFL. How much does he phase out of the offense and Travion Henderson come in? I think will be my most interesting watch from this game.
There's part of me that's rooting for you to get the Dolphins next week. That would be quite
Just
the
keep
change.
going in like that order where I
God.
get. That's a good idea. If I spin the Dolphins here, I suppose I'll respin. We can't watch the same game, so um,
I have a team that I'm like, it would be the most comedic to get one of these two teams. So we'll see if that happens.
is it an NFC North team?
They're both NFC North teams.
Yeah. How about the NFC South, baby?
That was close. That was close. Um, Nearly the Bears there for the audio listeners, which I thought would be the funniest one. Obviously, then
For
watching the
sure.
Lions again. I get the Atlanta Falcons this week. I'm excited to have a developed take on Michael Penix. It looks like I will be watching the NFC North as the Falcons battle the Vikings in Minnesota. Falcons obviously losing a close one divisionally. The Vikings winning a close one divisionally in week one. I feel like the edge right now would go to the Vikings in my head, but I think this is a great opportunity for two young quarterbacks to battle it out. Two teams that I would say firmly are maybe in that third tier of the NFC where we're not sure yet whether they're contenders or not. And they also aren't definitely in that late playoffs kind of bracket right now. So curious to see which of these teams pulls out, and we looking forward to evaluating Kyle Pitts' usage. It seems like Kyle Pitts might have had a good week one. Just are these defensive pieces we've talked about already? They added in the first round the one of my suspect moves of the offseason here. How did those two first round picks fare? Jalon
Mm.
Walker and James Pierce Jr. as well.
Yeah,
Exciting.
you
Good
were
team. Good
you were
team.
really not looking forward to the James Pierce Jr. gameplay, so I'm excited for you to have to watch it firsthand.
If James Pierce Jr. blows up the Vikings offensive line and gives the Vikings a bad time, I will eat my words. That's okay with me.
For sure.
But more optimism for me for Jalon Walker. So we'll see.
I'm taking the Patriots, obviously, in their the Dolphins matchup because it's the Dolphins, and the Dolphins look like the worst team in the NFL in Week 1. So
Yep, I'm taking the Vikings, not because the Falcons look bad. I just think the Vikings found something at the end of the game, week one, and managed to pull out a close game. So I think they've got a definite edge. But yeah, the Patriots getting the Dolphins. That's
and Falcons Vikings is one of our prime time matchups, Sunday Night Football. So why don't we go ahead and
ooh,
hit the other prime time matchup, starting with Thursday, Commanders Packers. What are you looking for in our first game of Week 2?
yeah. Commanders, I wouldn't say were really tested week one. The Packers, unfortunately, didn't appear to have been tested much week one, though I'd argue the Lions are more of a marquee opponent than the Giants. And I'd win that argument. So I think this is a great opportunity for the Commanders to test themselves against a team that's being considered one of the class of the NFC teams right now. For the Packers, if the Commanders come in firing offensively, how how does their defense fare? We were talking with Gabe, our friend and Packers fan, who had some skepticism about the run defense that Micah Parsons brings. Well, he's likely going to have an increased role in week 2, and Jaden Daniels is a mobile quarterback. So let's see how he can handle the two-headed giant of Krosky Merritt and Jaden Daniels.
There you go. Very excited about that. Yeah. Are the Packers real? Are they a real deal? We'll see. This, I think, two, I think, competitive teams in the NFC, the Lions and the Commanders, if they can have two great showings, that could be something worth monitoring as the season goes on.
Absolutely. Definitely a honestly really good Thursday night game.
Yeah, I was
Um,
gonna say it's a good matchup. So far, the primetime games have been pretty good.
yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on my schedule. I'll probably miss maybe the first half of that, but I'll see if I can pop in for the second half, or maybe listen on
Sure.
the radio, stuff like that. What else? What's next in prime time here?
Let's jump to the Monday night doubleheader primetime, starting at 6 p.m. Central Time. I'll
Yeah.
still be at work. So that will be Buccaneers at Texans in Houston. I mean, the Texans just looked not great in week 1 against a competitive Rams team. I think this Buccaneers team is also competitive. So how will they fare against them? Bucks edged out a win against the Falcons. I think I'll probably, if I were to pick this game, we didn't pick the Thursday night game, did we? I would, I'll probably pick the Packers because they're at home.
Me too,
Um,
but I don't like it.
yeah. Yeah. I think it'll be a great game though. This game, honestly, I'm feeling after the vibes of week 1. I'm feeling the Bucks. I'm gonna pick them in week 2 on the road in Houston.
Yeah, we were talking about prime time. I feel like the two Monday matches don't get me as excited. I didn't realize they weren't simultaneous. I know ESPN used to do that, but it looks like they're staggered
Hmm.
here. Yeah, I think the Bucks offense did some damage week 1. Don't think their defense is necessarily anything to sneeze at either. They definitely have some pieces. I like the Bucks over the Texans. Two good teams. I just don't think this particular matchup of teams gets me as excited as maybe some other pairings. But
Yeah, it's a lower tier primetime matchup. I'm even not as excited as Chargers against the Raiders at 9 p.m. That's 10 on the East Coast. That is a late game. Um, it's a crazy call by the schedule makers here. Obviously, both of these teams West Coast, so for them it's not that late, but for us watching, it's going to be pretty late. I think the Chargers looked really good in primetime in week 1 against the Chiefs. I think the Raiders, I already talked about how well I thought they fared against the Patriots last week as well. That being said, I think the Chargers present a different level of talent and threat against this team. So I think, are the Raiders good, or are they mid good? I think is the distinction that could be made in a matchup like this. But I will take the Chargers on the road. I mean, if they can handle the Chiefs all the way in their home country of Brazil, I think they'll be able to handle the Raiders in Vegas.
yeah, I think this is the I'll Google the score when I wake up game of the week for sure. Uh, I guess I stay up pretty late, and so do you. So we'll probably be awake for the balance of this game, but not as excited even about Bucks Texans here. That said, I could see this being a letdown game for the Chargers. You play out of your mind. You beat the Chiefs week 1. Then you got to go to Vegas and take on a Raiders team that seems to have shown some competence, and probably wants its own crack at the team that killed the team at the top of the division in theory, right? Um, so I might have the Raiders stealing a surprise game here
Mm.
from the Chargers, who, after turning themselves up to the max to beat the Chiefs week 1, might just have a little less gas in the tank than a Raiders team who didn't have to go full throttle against an okay opponent in week 1.
Friday to um, Monday night, back-to-back primetime slots here for the squad. I
Yeah.
guess the same can be said for the Vikings. They were also back-to-back prime time. Strange. Strange two
On the
teams that
one
have
hand,
back-to-back.
I guess that gives a rest advantage, right? If you're the Chargers,
Friday to Monday, yeah, for sure.
but you also had to leave the country and come back. So
That's true. That's very true. And after the Monday night game, of course, it'll be a shorter week for them going into next week than other teams
yeah, that's tough. Um,
because their game will end so freaking late.
okay. Any
Ugh.
other games you want to highlight this week, or do you want to jump into our one
Our
sentence?
our our one sentence rapid fire segment. So that's the primetime games. We got the wheel games. I'll pick one more game, and it's not the obvious one, although I do think we should talk about the obvious one. I'm talking about Bills Jets.
Ooh.
Home in New York after losing a close game against the Steelers. The Bills coming off this high against the Ravens team. Do they pump the brakes a little bit against a measly Jets opponent that they don't think they need to show up for as much? Interested to see what happens there. Think the
Yeah.
Bills are going to win, but what if they don't?
Yeah, I guess the same logic that I just brought up with Chargers Raiders would apply to Bills Jets potentially, right?
Yeah,
Um, I think the Bills are a much better team than the Jets in the way that I think the Chargers are just a better team than the Raiders. So I agree. I think the Bills will take that game, but um, the Jets looked really feisty, and I think even if the Jets come out of the first 2 weeks 0-2, um, real ones know, depending on how well they play against the Bills, that the Jets are building something there. I'm assuming the game you meant was Eagles Chiefs as the obvious game of discussion here.
correct.
Um, Interesting move by the schedule makers to not put this one in prime time, but I wonder if it's to avoid fatigue,
Yeah,
right? You're effectively going Super Bowl. They're both prime time teams sitting alone in week one, Thursday and Friday. To put them in another matchup that's marquee against each other, you probably get a little exhausted of that. And the other 3 o'clock slot games this week, a little softer. So maybe this gives everyone a Sunday afternoon to remember here. Uh, I like the Eagles in this one. I think the Chiefs, especially if we're going to be without Worthy for a few weeks here, you've got no Rashee Rice. Um, Kelsey didn't look like a world beater. I think the Eagles just have enough pieces on offense and defense both to feel like a more complete team right now than the Chiefs do. Even though you're going to Arrowhead, I feel like they're going to bring in momentum from a tough divisional win and handle the Chiefs.
yeah, I will take the Eagles as well in that matchup. Super Bowl rematch week 2. Interesting idea, not prime time. I don't know. I get the fatigue point though.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if you redraw the schedule and you drop this one in and at Sunday Night Football week 8 or something after there's maybe some luster worn off, but I don't know. Definitely interesting. Let's get to our rapid fire takes here. Do you
Rapid
want to
fire.
start or do you want me to
Let me
start?
start. I want to start. I want to start.
Do it, do it, do it.
I want to start with Giants, Cowboys. Which defensive tackle from the Giants will spit on Dak Prescott?
Nice. Seahawks, Steelers. Which diluted starting quarterback, and that's Diluted, starting quarterback looks like more of a quote unquote franchise guy between the Seahawks, Sam Darnold, and Steelers, Aaron Rodgers.
Rams, Titans. Is Cam Ward the next Matthew Stafford, where he spends his whole career on a mediocre team before being traded to a Super Bowl contender?
um, that's a good one. Uh, Patriots, Dolphins. I wouldn't wish
That's
this
my
game on my
game.
work.
That's my game. That's my
Do you
wheel
want to do
team.
the one
Thank
liner
you.
for this? Or, we covered it, so it doesn't count.
Yeah.
Okay. Jaguars,
Sorry.
Bengals.
Yeah, the more
Yes,
exciting game.
says no one. We get to watch Jaguars, Bengals. Another battle of first overall picks, one of whom maybe shouldn't be blonde.
uh, 49ers, Saints. Is Brock Purdy Mr. Irrelevant, or is it just all of the Saints quarterbacks?
That's good. Um, Browns, Ravens. Either Joe Flacco stuns the Ravens and slaughters his old team at noon on Sunday, or he flounders and Dylan Gabriel comes one step closer to the coronation. It's a win-win either way.
I think you should get Browns every week just to keep stacking upon this narrative.
Yeah.
um, Lions, Bears. What will the Bears do after starting 0-2 and the Lions score 50 points on them in a week 2 shocker?
Brilliant
Naturally.
take. Um,
Not a
I'm
Lions
proud of this.
podcast, by the way.
I'm proud of this next one, if I may.
Okay.
Broncos, Colts. Should the Colts be concerned that their logo is what goes under horses' feet?
There you go. That's oh man.
So stupid.
That's really good. Yeah. I like that a lot.
Here's a football one.
Okay.
Will week 2's Colts be week 1's Dolphins against the Broncos?
Ooh, that would be interesting to see. I would like that. I'll do Panthers, Cardinals. Tataroa McMillan returning to Arizona, where he went to college, just to lose because of the Panthers.
Nice. Nice.
That's it. That's the whole headline.
That's all of them. It kind of makes me sad that we talked about so many games because he didn't get to one-liner all the games that we already talked about. Maybe we'll just have to yeah, that's fun. Okay.
Well, we'll add the one-liner segment to the recaps as well. So the games that don't matter in the recaps, we can just fly through
them. Yeah, I think that's good. I feel like that's a fitting amount of discussion for Jaguars Panthers.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Super excited to be jumping into week 2. Any last insights on week 1 you want to share? Things you're looking forward to in week 2, general observations, thoughts, musings?
Daniel Jones, comeback player of the year.
Wow, interesting thought. I mean, I know they like the injured guys, but yeah, he could have a bid. If
practice squad safety to starting quarterback. This is the journey.
That's a great narrative. I think if the Colts are a wild card team, that's certainly in play. I think if they're anything less than a wild card team, I don't know if he'll have the juice to overcome the whole injury thing, but I like that a lot. Here's my take on week 1. Kickers, start making more of your field goals here, or things are going to get tough. And I am more than happy to give the kickers an example of what a pristine looks like. In my dark abyssal my eldritch office.
This is looking great.
Lights off because it's all ball here. Only focus.
Lights off is fine. Fan off is a little crazy, but that's okay.
I guess, I don't know. The AC's pumping.
Okay. Keep it cold. Got it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to sit in this chair motionless until our next episode drops so I can listen to what we just talked about, slack-jawed in the dark.
There you go.
Like a real fan consumes the content. All right, lining up the kick. This is going to be a Matt Prater chip shot. We'll say 20 yards. But obviously for the game against the Ravens, pretty significant one here. Let me say my mantra here.
Comment.
Like and subscribe. Comment your own one-liners about these week 2 matchups. Let's see if you can think of things that are funnier than us. Okay. Thinking about my family, my friends, and playing video games once the podcast is over. Kick is up.
Oh, I felt a little camera shake there, and a camera shake to me means a doink on the inside. It's good.